Well, the high-profile South Australian Liberal MP Cory Bernardi heads home to Australia this week after a 3-month secondment at the United Nations in New York. And he's full of advice for his colleagues, having watched the final months of the Trump presidential campaign. The Conservative senator is warning that Australia's major political parties have to listen to the message that many ordinary voters are trying to send, otherwise trouble may lie ahead for them. North America correspondent Zoe Daniels shadowed Cory Bernardi around New York.
It began as a simple secondment, a window into the work of the United Nations, an organisation at the centre of the global political machine.
Well, it's great to be here in New York City, of course, for a 3-month secondment to the United Nations. It's going to be interesting for me, given my own, perspective and preconceived ideas about the United Nations. I've said in the past it uses a lot of taxpayers' money. It's sometimes ineffective, and it's a bureaucratic black hole. It remains to be seen whether that's going to be the case or not.
But when Cory Bernardi and Labor Senator Lisa Singh land in New York, they're unaware that they'll also bear witness to an extraordinary political event that'll shake global politics to its core.
Do you feel validated by Donald Trump winning the election?
There's a part of me that does, yeah. Because it was very unfashionable to support him. It's not about his character. It's not about all of his policy positions, but I thought he is the catalyst for change, and that many of the issues that he's been targeted about and criticised for, I think, are absolutely mainstream. All the world leaders here.
We first meet in the United Nations compound in New York in September during the UN General Assembly.
Well, here we are in the main entrance of the United Nations.
Australia's Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull is giving his first speech to the General Assembly.
The tenor of our times is change, accelerating with a pace and scale unprecedented in all of human history.
And Senator Bernardi is just beginning his work as a monitor and observer.
Look, it is a progressive organisation, is how I would do it. They love the idea that government can fix the world's problems. I don't subscribe to that theory, and I don't think that a global, supranational organisation can fix every domestic problem.
Recruiting them.
During his 10 years in the Senate, Cory Bernardi has brought hard right values to Australian mainstream politics. He's vehemently opposed gay marriage, opposed the Safe Schools anti-bullying program because he says it intimidates children into conforming to a homosexual agenda, and pushed for an inquiry into halal meat after linking it to terrorism funding. His beef with the current state of politics is that he thinks it's ruled by political correctness.
I have to tell you, it was many in my own party that stopped it. I wanted to have this discussion many, many years ago, and they would tell me to be quiet, publicly and privately.
Because they thought you'd alienate voters?
I suspect so. They thought that they didn't want to discuss it. It was just too hard.
Donald Trump's victory in the presidential election has exploded the political establishment.
I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans, and this is so important to me.
And while it's caused global consternation about fostering sexism, racism, xenophobia and isolationism, for the hard right, it's a validation.
Thank you. Well, it's been a hectic few weeks. Donald Trump is now the president-elect, and I've come back to New York to talk to Senator Bernardi about that.
I hope he'll grow into the role. I think he will. I think there's a great opportunity for us to strengthen this country, to make it great again, and also in Australia, I think there's a lot we can learn from it.
It's not politics playing on fear, xenophobia, things like that?
No, they're things that people will characterise it as, because it's politically opportune for them to do it. But, not having people that are undocumented or illegally in your country, I think is entirely mainstream. Cutting taxes is mainstream. Protecting your borders is mainstream. You know, trying to get government out of people's lives is a very sensible thing. There's lessons for both our parties.
Absolutely.
And
Corey Bernardi and Labor Senator Lisa Singh have very different politics.
A magnificent victory for the Trump campaign.
The devastating win of the Donald Trump campaign. We have to remember, Corey, we're sitting in Manhattan. Only 10% of Manhattan voted for him. This city has become very depressed since last 2 weeks ago.
Not the 10% of the people that I've found.
I've felt it. I mean, it's the people I've talked to are just, they can't believe it. They're still in shock. I'm still in shock.
The two senators have found some common ground during their time here.
It's the best kind of forum there is to actually sit down and have a face-to-face discussion as member states on how to resolve some of these complex issues.
See, after 3 months, that's something I agree with you about, that the ability to have multilateral conversations is important in an organised sense. I just think that is a valuable thing.
You have been here for almost 3 months now at the UN, which is kind of...
Still standing, still standing. Look, it is what it is. There is some value in the UN, I see that. But I do think there's a whole bunch of overreach as well. And I would characterise it such as, I think the UN should be a reactive organisation rather than a proactive one. That its reason for being was to have multilateral dialogue, which I think is important, to ensure that, you know, the horrors of global world war can be averted where possible, and to provide, you know, relief in circumstances where, you know, you need a coordinated international approach, such as in humanitarian aims. I think they're all worthy aims. I do. I genuinely think there is a place for that.
So that's a softening of your position?
Well, yeah, because what did I say? It was a bureaucratic black hole, and it still is. It still is. And there's huge amounts of money that go into it. But there's many that say the UN fulfills a necessary role, but it needs to be reformed. What reform means to different people is the real question.
As his time in New York draws to a close, Corey Bernardi has been out and about meeting members of Donald Trump's team, including key advisors Rudy Giuliani and Kellyanne Conway. He's also contemplating what it means for Australia and for his own political future. Will we see a Bernardi party emerge? It has crossed his mind, and more so lately.
So can we expect a range of Make Australia Great Again caps?
That was a birthday gift someone gave, but I have had lots of questions about where they can get them and would I produce some for them. I think it's one of the great political slogans of all time, Make America Great Again. I thought it tapped into something.
Well, I think you got the response from wearing that hat in a Twitter photograph that Australia is already great.
It is, but it can be better.
In a telegraphed punch, he's issued a warning to the Liberal Party.
You know, I've been criticised, not just by the Labor Party, not just by the media, but by my own side. Not one of them has come to me afterwards and said, when they've changed their position, you know, 6 months or a year or 2 years later, gee, you were right. Well, I've got to have the kangaroo period just to be nostalgic.
Either the party finds a way to connect with people better, or he will.
Mainstream parties have refused to discuss the issues, and people are going, if you're not going to talk about it, I'll find someone that will. And it's the same in Australia with Xenophon, with Hanson, with Hinch, with you know, Palmer before that. They're looking outside of the main parties. So how do you redress that? How do you fix it? Well, you've got to start to debate the real matters of substance for many people. But whether they will heed the warnings, I'm not sure. I've been trying to warn them of this for many, many years, and they all say it's not going to happen here, so we'll see.
Zoe Daniel reporting from New York.